The lights had been turned off on the people of Israel. This is where we pick up Isaiah the prophet in that first reading. Everything that before had given them a sense of direction and a sense of hope was covered up. They had been sent away from their homeland in exile, deprived of worship in the temple, and separated from everything that identified them as the chosen people of God. As Isaiah says, darkness covers the earth, and thick clouds cover the peoples. Lost and blind, roaming in the darkness, that great pillar of fire that once led them out of Egypt seemed to have been hosed down and snuffed out. Darkness and confusion dominated this once glorious nation who had lived in the Promised Land. It was to this people that Isaiah the prophet announces the good news. Rise up in splendor, Jerusalem, your light has come. To people in darkness, to people who have lost hope, to people who are caught in a cavern of sin, to those who are separated from family, to those who fight each day just to find a reason to get up in the morning, to all those who are caught in the cloud of sickness, to those who suffer with despair and depression, God the Almighty announces this great news. Rise up in splendor, your light has come. Over and over again, generation after generation, this is the good news that God offers to His people. Rise up in splendor. Your light has come. This is the message that we are called to share with our brothers and sisters, all those who desperately need to hear it. Rise up in splendor. Do not be defined by your sin. Don't allow yourself to be caught in isolation, but rise up in splendor. Your light has come. It's either this or we put on our marquee, come on in and listen to us tell you about all the problems of the world. I'm pretty sure that a whole lot of folks aren't that interested in a faith that is concerned only with the problems of this world. And yet so often this is where we get stuck. We get stuck complaining about things. But Jesus didn't come and He didn't say to us, you are the complaint center of the world. He didn't say, you are the suggestion box of the world. He said, you are the light of the world. So often we spend our time defending ourselves against attacks, always backing up, always on our heels. But we're called to move forward. We're called to take the initiative that God has taken to us, the light that He has shown to us, and to share it with all those who need to hear it. This is what we are called to do. Because people will move from the darkness to the light if there is a witness of light in their midst. If there is a witness who shows them the glory of God present in our world. But we have to decide if we are willing to make the journey of the Magi, if we are willing to follow the light. Because there can be a tendency in us to remain in the darkness, to stay hidden, to get comfortable in the shadows. I remember several years ago I was at a high school football game out in the middle of nowhere, and the home team was wearing dark jerseys, and they had intentionally removed light bulbs from their light fixtures that lit the field so that it would be darker, so that it would be easier for them to hide the ball when they were on offense. It's an interesting strategy, probably illegal, but that's okay. But so often this is how we can live. We can live in the shadows. We can hide ourselves. We can isolate ourselves. We can sneak around, not wanting to be found out. We can live separate lives, having a secret life and having a public life. And we can sneak around in the shadows. But my friends, no one but the devil can live like this. Eventually it will catch up to us and it will wear us down. We're called to live in the light. We're called to step into the glory of God. to be immersed in the goodness that He has given to us. And there are so many who need this same glory, so many who need to be invited into the light. And it won't happen through condemnation. People will not move from the darkness because people are shaking a finger at them or because they're being condemned. People will move from the darkness to the light if there is a witness of light, a witness of God's glory in their midst. This it's not first a question of who's right and who's wrong. It's a question of love. Do you love yourself enough to move from the darkness? Do you love your neighbor enough to be a witness of light? Do you love God enough to believe that His light and His glory is better than the darkness that we so often hide in? This is a question of love. It's about loving one another. And I'm very much aware that the way that I live affects all of you. I know that if I don't pray, if I don't confess my sins on a regular basis, if I don't deepen my relationship with God, then it affects you. But I also know that I'm not the only one. Parents and grandparents are called to be a light to their children and grandchildren. All of us are called to help one another to be witnesses of what it means to live with joy in the glory of God. And my friends, we can. This is not something difficult for us. This is not something that is beyond our reach. Even in the midst of difficult circumstances, we can be witnesses of light, witnesses of joy. And this is what we so desperately need, to be light for one another. For those who struggle, to say that there is hope, that Christ is present and He is among us. I hope that this celebration is truly an epiphany for us, a real revelation of how God is present not only in our midst, but also in our own hearts. That more and more we can allow the light of Christ to shine within us, so that all those who dwell in the shadow of death can come to know the glory of God present in their midst.